for your prayer, and thank you, Debbie, for timing, and I will move forward.
Lynn, can I ask you, do you want me to get
Thank you so much. Wow. I appreciate this opportunity. And I thought I'm going to start from a passage from Psalm 40. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and he heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. I just chose that when you were saying the first few minutes, do I know Jesus? Yeah, I waited patiently, I think, for the Lord to help me. I saw people in my life that had a relationship with the Lord, and I wanted what they had. I saw their ability to get out of themselves, to accomplish things that were way beyond their own abilities, shall I say. And I wanted that, but I never knew how to achieve it. I really saw it specifically, I think, in my mother growing up. And she had so many things that were going on in her life. And despite them all, she was able to keep that faith and that joy of the Lord. And I'll quickly now just talk about my mother very quickly. My mother converted to Catholicism when she married my father, and shortly thereafter, she was diagnosed with systemic lupus at that time, and with what the type she had, she was told that, this was pretty much a death sentence, and if she ever had children, it would basically bring upon her death. And she had become a Catholic, and in doing so, the Catholics basically did not condone birth control. And nevertheless, she thought, this is something I'm going to follow, this practice. And she had 14 pregnancies. She lost many, but she ended up having 6 children. And with every birth, she was sicker, and it just goes on and on. But through it all, she really had this faith in the Lord that got her through so much. There was a lot going on in my life, like a lot of us. My father was an alcoholic, and he had been committed to a time to an institution, and there was a lot of emotional illness. And despite it all, she was able to really give back to the community, to her children, and she really saw God and God's will through all of this. I didn't see God's will, okay? It talks about, in this passage, being lifted out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and mire. I was in that pit of despair most of my life, and for me, that pit of despair involved primarily depression and compulsive overeating and self-centeredness. I couldn't get out of it. I recognize today that I believed the father of lies and all the lies that he had, that basically all those darts that he sent my way. I love that vision. It helps me. I think it's an emphasis of, basically putting up that shield of faith against those fiery darts of the devil. And most of my life, I just rolled over. And those devils, the devil shot those arrows at me, and I just put up no resistance. And for me, the compulsive overeating and the depression and the despair, we're all pretty much one of the same. My mother died when I was about 20 or 21, and I remember at that time thinking, golly, how I know that the Lord was her strength, and how can I get that? Despite going to Catholic schools and Mass and this, that, and the other, I was never able to really connect on that level. I remember asking my sister once, how was Mom able to have that faith with everything that she went through? And I went searching for it, and I searched for it through, I had so many books, all right? I have an addictive tendency, and when I say I had recovery so-called books, I had thousands of books. I was always searching for the answer. I've moved a couple times in the last couple of years, and let me tell you, every move I've probably unloaded about 1,000 books, and I think I'm down now to about 300. I don't need those books anymore. The books that I cherish are the Big Book and the Bible. And I'd say now the Bible even more than the Big Book, although I believe that the Big Book led me to the Bible. And no matter what I did, and no matter what I read, and no matter what I tried to do, I could not free myself of the bondage of compulsive overeating. And I had a victim mentality. I felt sorry for myself all the time. I could be of no service really to anybody. And I wasn't one of those children who, how shall I say, partook in activities like a normal child would. I was a very, very depressed child. I believe, and I was one of those children that was always in trouble, causing disruptions in classes and on and on. And I think the schools, when I was in about 6th grade, sent me to my first psychiatrist. I went to psychiatrist for so long. I don't know. I started in 6th grade, and I think I don't know. I haven't gone to a psychiatrist probably in the last 20 years. But I know psychiatrists help a lot of people, but they never really helped me. The only thing that really has helped me and pulled me out of my despair has been the Lord. And, I know that the Word is truly a lamp to my feet and a light to my path, and I believe that today. I love that. I love the fact that there is the Bible, and I can go to the Bible, and it gives me so much comfort, and it really tells me how to live my life today. And I felt like I came into this world not knowing which way to go, and my answer to everything was the food. And the food always gave me this temporary euphoria. For 1 second, it was like I had that and then all of the regret and how did I do it again and on again. And I guess where I want to go from here is I want to say how instrumental in my life has been the 90 days. I remember a couple of years ago, I think I was praying to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I know I really appreciate this book, and I need a shepherd. And it was unbelievable. I think it was the next meeting, and it was at the 5 a.m. meeting. And this woman got on the phone. I'd never heard her on this meeting before. I had heard her on other meetings, and I knew her through my food program a bit. I really didn't have a personal relationship, but I knew her. And she got on and she said, I am available to shepherd someone. And I thought, oh my gosh, the Lord has answered my prayer. And it didn't take long on this one. This was a very expedient answer to a prayer. And I went through the 90 days of encouragement with her, and what a joy, what an eye-opening opportunity. And I love day one because I've had to go back to day one here more times than I'd like to admit. And I love the passage from Philippians, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Philippians 3:13 and 14. And this passage begins, beginning again. I think back to the day in 1987 and wonder, what if I had decided not to try just one more time? What if I had given up and decided that it was too hard to get abstinent? Only God knew that making that one last effort to begin again will result in this writing. For me, this is not what is written here, but for me, it was 3 years in May of back-to-back abstinence. And I've had a long history of getting abstinent and losing my abstinence. At one point in time, I had about 7 to 8 years of abstinence in a certain food program that I've been around now for probably about 18 years. And I went back out into the food, and I couldn't get back. I just couldn't get back. I was trying everything. And I thought, okay, what's different here? Why can you not get back on? 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes until I'm through. I was saying, so I'm out there in the land of the wilderness, shall I say, of compulsive overeating, not knowing my bearings. I think of all the people in the desert and not knowing where I was going. And finally it came to me, so what's different here? What do you need? And I thought, in my last abstinence, I participated in Bible for Food. And I need that. I really do. I love the big book, but Bible for Food takes me to a whole different place when it comes to the Lord and my relationship with the Lord and the Word. And I think today, what I could really relate to in today's reading, day 55, was when it said, people have come to me for help because they have been convinced more by what they have seen than what I ever could say about abstinence. And I want to say this about Pat. What I have seen regarding Pat and her interactions with people and how she conducts this meeting and her walk with the Lord, nothing has convinced me more of the Lord. And I love this last passage here. It says, through his power, on day 51, through his power, I do those things that strengthen my soul, lead others out of darkness, and cause the lost to be drawn into his light. And I think Pat has had such an influence over me being lost and drawn into his light. And she referred to earlier when I had stayed at her place before a retreat. And I'll just make this as quick as I can, but let me tell you, Pat is very organized and was doing everything to make sure everything was very well organized for the retreat. And I hopped on her computer, and whatever I pushed or whatever I did, everything that she had set up on her notes and everything relative to the retreat were lost. And I could tell how important this retreat was to Pat. And I was just I thought, oh my God. But, despite that, and I think the retreat, I think we were leaving that day or the next morning, she kept her composure and her trust and faith in God. And it was like, I wanted what she has, and I still do. And I just so appreciate Pat. I so appreciate the 90 days of encouragement. I appreciate how it's laid out, her experiences. I can so relate to her travels with the food and with her, shall I say, battling the evil one, with the Lord, with the Word, and getting to the other side. And my God, it's such a testimony that she has, I don't know how many years now, 30 some or perhaps going on 40 back-to-back years of abstinence. And more than that, she has a relationship with the Lord that I want. I just so respect that. And I am so in awe of her mastery of the Bible and her Bible memorization. And I strive for that. As of late, I have to say, I let the world, or the temporal world, get in way of my relationship with the Lord as late, and I have not been spending the time with the Lord or with the ministry as I had in the past, and my life has reflected that. And today has been a great opportunity for me to look back and to see how all the miracles the Lord has done in my life, and that I do need to partake more in the ministry and more in Bible memorization. And I'm going to go back to day 90 and the 90 days of encouragement. And I'm going to close with reading from Pat's passage here. The Lord has given you a precious gift, time in this day. You can squander it by obsessing about food, overeating, and are sleeping off a food hangover. Or you can remember whose you are. You have been redeemed and you belong to Jesus. His Spirit has been placed inside of you. Because of this, when the fool calls out, you have the power to say, no. You don't have to live beaten down and crushed. You have kingdom work to do, and you must refuse to let food abuse stop you in your tracks. You are strong in the Lord, and God wants both your mind and your body to reflect the truth that the King is in control. Right here, I do want to focus quickly on, because of this, His Spirit, when the food calls, you have the power to say no. The 12-step rooms talk about we are powerless. And one thing that I really appreciate here is that because of Jesus and the Spirit, today, and the Spirit that Jesus has placed inside of me, because of this, when the food calls out, I do have that power to say no. I am not powerless. And that is a divine message to me today. And I'm so grateful for my abstinence, and I'm grateful to recognize that it is a gift, and totally a gift from the Lord. And, it's only by God's grace and mercy which washes over and cleanses me and restores me. God, you are so good, and thank you for giving me this opportunity this morning to share my testimony. And with that, I am going to close. Thank you so much.